So good to be on vacation. Just to be out, not being in the club and anything. Ah, this calling. Oh, Mr. Mango. John, baby, how you doing? Wait, today? And you need the mango. Well, you know what? I got you, baby. You got it. Hey, get the private plane ready. We're needed. All right, baby. I'll see you there.
All right, welcome everybody to Cardfight Con 2020. This is our WCC panel. I'm going to get this started by introducing myself. I'm Greg. I'm going to be your moderator host for this panel, and then this is WCC, or the members who have popped on. We're going to start with Kai. Introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, I'm Kai. You probably see me on the channel, YouTube channel, quite often because I'm just probably the main guy there, and it's good to be here.
Solemn.
What's up? I'm Solemn, otherwise known as maybe Maxime. I have a Vanguard YouTube channel, also some other YouTube channels. I run some companies, and I make some music. So, but you'll probably if you're on this con, probably mostly aware of the Vanguard.
It's fair. Albert.
Yeah, I'm Albert, and you probably see me roaming the tournament halls of North America as either a judge or a competitor.
All right, we're up.
So we're up, and people knew me as probably like the face of WCC. I get memed by everyone everywhere. Making this team, gathering people from all over the world. Used to play in Australia, but right now I'm currently in Indonesia. So yeah, that's all for me.
And Noman.
Hi, I'm Noman. I'm from the North American side of WCC, one of the newer members in the team. I'm happy to be here.
Alrighty, well, let's get started. So first question is going to be, how and why did WCC first form? And why did you guys join? Who would like to begin?
I guess David.
So I guess like it started from like a meme page, I guess, like back in 2016. So yeah, like I was traveling to Sydney, like playing in PCSs. Like initially, I went to Worlds in 2015, and then I met Albert and Kevin Cho over there. I met Togan as well. So quite a few of our members that we met together in the events. So we still keep in contact here and there, but we'll never eventually met each other until this year. So yeah, so pretty much like we are like a bunch of like players all over the world, in Australia and the America as well, but we never get any together. So I just pretty much like decided to make a Discord channel so that like everyone that I knew can be, I can be friends with each other as well, can be like discussing stuff, I know deck lists, or like play testing in CFA usually. So and everyone just like buy into like me becoming like the memes and like the faces of the team. As you know, like from our Facebook page, the name is Rep Cardfight Consulting, not World Class Cardfighters, and it was meant for like just like people just like bashing me over there because like I don't know, like my face is gotten into. I don't know, Kai. You tell them like, well, what do you guys do to my face? I don't know.
We turned his face into a shirt. And pretty much everyone in Australia bought this shirt that no we have. So if you see someone wearing a strange orange shirt, it's his face. It's his face on it.
That's fantastic.
Like one from one of the PCS, they basically print myself like, and then promote me as like, if you want to consult about your issues or like problem in Vanguard, you go to this dude and like just write down some like random bullshit reviews that you usually know in like
one of the BCSs, one of the guys in Australia made a brochure and he spread it around an advertisement. It was one of those like one of those if you come to the consulting
Yeah.
website or business. Give his funny story on the WCC I think Facebook page. Some like one of the guys here did post his actual phone number on there. So if you actually gave that a call, you
Well,
could have gotten a free consulting
yeah,
session.
that was actually my Australia phone number. So and then they posted my like the original email of me as well. So everything over there is like my actual information. So yeah, so like from the memes, and then we get to like make a Discord channel, and then I invite everyone pretty much that I knew from Albert. Albert actually like helps me a lot in terms of like expanding the team. You know, he knew a lot of players, especially the one from America, like Norman and Steven from Canada, the DPS team. So basically we just like getting bigger and bigger, and then eventually I think like somewhere in the middle of 2019, Solemn joins us as well. Ryan Kai and Hongwei from Asia, from Malaysia join us as well. They just feel like want to be, like connect with us more. They want to discuss more about like the in depth of the game, and also like making friends as well from all over the world. So yeah, and then like eventually from the memes, from all the Facebook pages, all these brochures, and like the printing on the shirts. Eventually becomes like all connected together, and we just become a team afterwards, and that's the gist of the WCC, more or less.
Okay.
If any of you want to add, something.
Yeah, I think like at first, because I entered in like 2019, right? And if you look at the history, at first it's very memey. Like it's mostly BS. But then as you start noticing that there's so many insanely good players on the team, like before I even joined, and they're all topping, despite it all starting from memes, it's still somewhat taken seriously because like these people have results. And so when I qualified Worlds for 2018, I want to say, well, that happened in 2019. Meeting them there IRL and like having the best time of my life, like with Andy being drunk and shit. um, we got to a point where I just wanted to join, but I didn't want to ask. And then I guess they wanted me to join. And at the same time, I feel the branding of WCC got way more mature, like from a consulting meme page to a legit team. And that started happening before I even joined. So that's also why I was like, I really wanted to join. Not only did I have the most fun ever at Worlds with them, but then they were also the best players. But maybe Kai or Noman has some input on that as well.
It's kind of funny because I remember I first met Solemn on Reddit, and that was because we disagreed about Gize.
Yes.
So we're like, oh, I'm going to Worlds as well. Let's talk about it there. And that's the first interaction I had with Solemn was disagreeing about Gize.
Yes. I don't even know like if I still have the same opinion now, or like who was on what side even. I don't even remember at this point.
I think I was on the I hate Gize side, and you were like Gize is fine side.
Oh yeah.
I think most of us has that opinion when we first interact with Solemn. It was like, yeah, these guys are like really tough, like tough to change. Really like have this one opinion that he feels that it's right, and then he does not really want to listen to other people. But I think he grew so much when he joined us. Be more flexible with his opinion. The change is really good in my opinion.
So he grew. So Albert, why did you join?
Well, so I guess initially, as David said, it was more of like a meme page type deal. But the idea was, especially in North America, and at being a judge, knowing so many players from Kevin, he brought up Steven, Noman to an extent, Bryson, and other players just across the U.S. being in admin of the Vanguardians Facebook page as well, and just hearing like these people talk about Yu-Gi-Oh teams and teams from games other than that. It's just really the idea of being able to elevate yourself by utilizing the resources of other players, right? We don't all have infinite time, we don't all have infinite resources, but by piecing it out and by working with other players that are, your level, even higher than that, significantly higher than that in the case of like Kevin, you'll be able to create something greater than that of yourself. And that was kind of the idea of building something more than what we had in North America. And you see a lot of these other teams that are built that are centralized around the US, but I think that's one of the really nice things about WCC, because you have people playing Japanese format. You have people playing in an environment that isn't necessarily the format of the United States. And I'm sure Solemn can attest this when he was in LA for Kara Expo, that there are some bits of the US that are different from formats of other countries. So in in that sense, yeah, I think that alone helps solidify your game and learn more about how to play outside of that, of the confines of your home country, and just being able to instill that in the community of NA, which generally tends to be extremely NA centric.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah, a little bit.
helps those players out a lot too when it comes to the world stage.
I think Albert raises a very good point as well. As everyone is from their own region as well, and they have different approaches to the game. So we all might have different ideas, or like different first impressions, or different ideas how we approach something. But in the end, we still kind of get together and share those ideas, so we can kind of maximize or develop the best ideas that work. I guess the best, right?
Yeah. Beyond that, though, I think beyond the fact that obviously all the players in the team get better, I think a card game needs to have teams because it adds a level of prestige and seriousness, I want to say. Like, if you look at obviously football, basketball, and so forth, they have their entire leagues and teams and blah, blah. Imagine if they didn't have that. Surely you wouldn't create the same kind of atmosphere competitively. And so then we started seeing in esports that they started creating their teams and so forth as it matured and got more serious. And after that, in card games, like you start seeing Hearthstone teams. And so I feel like obviously Vanguard is still in its relative infancy, I want to say, when it comes to that. You need at one point teams and organizations in order to not only have some kind of monetary stimulus, not necessarily for the sake of money, of course, because, well, card games are card games. So if you're doing it for money, you're already doing something wrong. But adding that level of seriousness creates something that people can aspire to. And so it just elevates everything, I feel, to a new level, which when Vanguard didn't have teams, I feel it was lesser because of it. But of course, like having teams just to playtest and so forth is still the most important thing. But I don't think it can be overstated how important it is for the seriousness and competitiveness maybe of the game.
That makes sense. No, man, you've been kind of quiet. Why'd you join?
Oh, yeah. So I know there's like a history of like WCC being kind of like a meme page and everything, but I've only been playing Vanguard for like 2 years. Well, at least that's what I'm aware of. 2.5, somewhere around that. So when I started playing Vanguard, I was already beyond the meme portion of the team. From my point of view, from what I saw, was like a hardcore, serious worldwide team, which is really mind blowing to me because I came from a Yu-Gi-Oh background. Like Vanguard is actually my second TCG, so like in Yu-Gi-Oh, teams were very common around that time. At least it was back in like 2018 or whenever. It was really cool to see like everyone belonging to like their own small community to where they play test and everything. What's most important to me in a card game is the testing circle. I don't care about sponsors. I don't care about like what you get out of card games. I don't even care about like the prize support, because if I cared about prize support, I may as well like pick up a second job if I really want to like make money. But I care more about the testing group and everyone that I'm in. So I saw WCC and I'm like, this team is stacked. I love it, and I want to be in it one day. And yeah, it's like honestly true. And then before I actually was on WCC, I was testing with Solemn, and then Solemn joined WCC. So I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. And it's like I made a goal of like working hard to eventually be on the team, which I guess worked out. But yeah, it's pretty much just like it is kind of crazy to me that there was like a meme background because you look at the roster and it's like Ryan Kai alone has like 28 tops. What do you mean this is a meme? Like, it's just mind blowing to me. But yeah, yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, I'm still relatively new to the team, but I've had a blast so far. Like, even in my short time, I think it's only been a year, I believe. Like, I joined after last October. Yeah, it's been about a year. But even in the short time I've been in the team, my mind's been blown multiple times. At least like once every month. Like someone messages me, like where I will be like, yo, check out this like broken Genesis deck. I'm like, I don't even know what these cards are, so I'm excited. That's probably like the best part of the game is just like all these like mind-blowing ideas, or like just having your entire perspective blown open by your teammates is a wonderful feeling, and that's pretty much why I'm here and why I joined.
Okay, good deal. Solomon already pretty much went over his end of it. What's the importance to you guys of having a team?
I guess
I
I'll
think
start.
Oh, you good? Go ahead.
Okay. Basically, like one of the big things is for me is probably like the social aspect because you talk with a bunch of people that also like the game. Like, I think the page being a meme page in the beginning was also a way of expressing the fun you're having. If you're not having fun playing, then you're probably not going to last that long anyway. So having a social aspect, meeting new people, I guess the biggest meme you could say that we meet a lot of people and eventually they all become our friends, just like anime. So yeah, like Derek, Solemn, etc. So yeah, no, for me it's about the social aspect and just being able to. Of course, the testing part is too, but just generally meeting new people and learning about them is really good for me.
Okay, Albert.
Yeah, I think I agree, but it's also interesting to have people who recognize the brand, and so when they see, you're wearing a WCC shirt or a WCC hoodie, they come up and they talk about it, they ask about it, they have, increased interest or curiosity in teams, the competitive culture, and they used to be casual, et cetera, et cetera. I think that brings a bit more aspect to the community building side of things. So, meeting people, y- being able to talk about that kind of aspect of it, how to start a team, et cetera, how to increase the size of your community when they start asking questions about that, and just being able to talk through some of the other aspects, not necessarily just playing the game, but helping the game grow as a whole. I think it's imperative and invaluable that this team exists for that.
That's an incredibly politically correct answer.
Very sensible person now.
That's fair. That's fair. Weird. What about you?
Yeah, for me, I think I just want to follow up what Solomon and Albert said in before.
Okay.
So basically, I think like the era of Vanguard, right? It started to get like really booming was like around 2017 to 2018, where everyone starts sharing deck lists online. Everyone starts becoming content creator, making like a YouTube channel, sharing ideas of decks that people never saw before. And I remember that wasn't the case before that. Like before that, it was really hard to find like a deck list from like people who does not talk or something like that. So the resources were more limited, and so like having a team during that times really helps you because you get to share ideas with your friends basically, and also it sort of like bring up to the point that when we have a team, other players, other like communities also like try to look at us and be like, these guys like are making a team, and it consists of a strong players as well, and we do not want to lose to them. We want to make the same thing as well. It sounds cool. It's a really prestigious thing. Like a single fight against each other. It's pretty like it's pretty basic. But when it's a team clash against other team, like we did in at Worlds against like the other teams, like Triple Slave Soul, like Vision and Strictly Broken, it becomes something like luxury. You know, it becomes something like a really massive, and people really like to see that, which is why I think this the reason why there are a lot of teams and content creators now like appearing everywhere in Vanguard. And like Solemn said, you know, hopefully this is becoming like a bridge in the future that uh Cardfight Vanguard or like TCG in general just maybe like a bit closer to what esports looks like at the moment. That's the hope. You know.
For sure. Well, we can segue off of that into why you guys did the YouTube channel. We'll start with the WCC channel, then we'll segue into Solemn why you did your channel. So, who would like to start with that one? Kai?
That's yours.
Kai, you want to go?
I think at first we just wanted to put content on. We started with like a podcast, right, Albert? Yeah, just
Yeah.
But then
Similar to this one.
yeah, and then eventually I just kind of posted more random stuff because instead of posting like a podcast like once every few weeks or a month or so, we just put on more content. I guess it just kind of went from there because it got pretty interesting just posting videos, really learning how to edit something. So yeah, that's that's what it became pretty much.
Yeah,
Didn't
and
we also have a
kinda,
talk about this?
yeah.
Like, oh, sorry, do you want to go first, Rob?
Yeah, I can continue with kind of. So we also want to kind of show like people how are the top teams in the world, like basically how are the way they think inside or outside the game. You know, like starting from the deck list, tournament preparation, ruling, combos, stuff like that. We kind of want to show people this is what you guys missing. This is what you can learn from us in order to become like a better player and also a better person. So like most of the contents that we posted out, we make sure that we want to help the community. We want to help people to grow as well as a player and as a person, as I said. And yeah, and it's pretty much like one of the reason why we think that our channel is different compared to other channels. So
Yeah, I remember talking to Kai about that channel when it was still only the podcast. And like, I seem to recall it was like, oh yeah, the views aren't like really huge because it was all long form, like literally 40 minutes of deep
yeah,
technical talk. And I'm like, you realize you're only talking to like a very slim sliver of people who are willing to sit through that or something like that. Like I was certain like we had more nuance than that in the talk, but I think that's what it came down to. And then over time, I feel like it started morphing away. But
mhm.
maybe Kai has even more input there.
Yeah, we definitely had a lot of chats, right? It's
Yeah.
every time in Japan, it's like awesome. We just chat to like 4 a.m. about anything. But yeah, no, it's at first it was definitely like a lot more technical and stuff, but we kind of slowly changed it, trying to get it more like so more people want to watch, and also kind of morph it into like bring on more people on. And I think recently I've been trying to bring more the Australian guys, just like popping them on and showing what's up with them. So yeah, it's been slowly getting to that to show more of the team and what are they up to.
That's fair. It's nice to sit down and watch the technical side, but sometimes I would say that not everybody's gonna be as wanting
Yeah,
to watch
exactly.
that. Like I'll sit down and watch an hour and a half long video of why is this one deck and why is this one card good, but I don't think everyone else will. So
Yeah, I think the difficulty of like the technical aspect of some of our podcasts, especially like the earlier day, might just fry someone's brain. Like it's yeah, it's like something that might not come across to everyone's thought. Like wow, this and that card has that kind of interaction. Like that's the first time I heard about it. So stuff like that.
that's fair. All right,
Mm.
Solemn, why'd you start your channel? Give us some detail.
So the story's kind of shit. Oh no, I can't swear.
You're
So
fine.
I
You're
often
fine.
already talked to Chris from Different Fights before even having a channel, just like as acquaintances or friends. I don't know what he saw us as, but anyway, so I would talk to him quite often. And we would often say, I didn't want to be a YouTuber. Like I was super clear about that. We talked. I was like, oh, dude, I would never want to be a YouTuber. I just want to be a competitive player and like do well and so forth. And then I made some deck profiles. I don't know why, because if you look up those older videos, you probably notice it's nowhere near like what it should be as far as quality goes, because I wasn't trying for it to be a YouTube channel. And then I don't know why at some point I made the click, wouldn't it be funny if I tried? And so then I started uploading every single day because I was very aware of how the YouTube algorithm and all that worked because I was in marketing already for music. And so I just abused the living hell out of all the little metrics and the nerdy side essentially because I wanted to see if I could. But then because I actually enjoyed that so much, it just created this feedback loop where I was eventually like, fine, I guess I have a YouTube channel now. And so then went from there. But I certainly feel like if I wasn't back then trying to be a competitive player, I still wouldn't have made the channel anyway. So it's more so an extension of me trying to be competitive and then using like my nerdy side in the beginning to make it work, and then that gradually moved. I don't think I would be a YouTuber if I wasn't also entering BCSs and trying hard there.
That's fair. All right. Well, we'll move on to the next one then. So we kind of already went over, what's the advantage of having everybody, from all parts of the world. But can you guys give us a little breakdown on what what's it like to have like the different meta analysis from over the world, and like kind of like what's the price of like getting into the game in your part of the world? We'll start with Albert. Go for it.
I mean, I think in terms of that, it's more of deck building, I guess. And I yeah, the meta analysis, at least for NA, is pretty straightforward. People just net deck Japan and then call it a day for the most part, I think.
Yeah.
Oof.
I guess some people actually test the list before they go to tournament. Some people just kind of go into it blind and then helmet it straight through. It's not really a knock at NA, but that just seems to be the vast majority of, that more topping players. And then obviously, you have the bottom 60%, which is just they play whatever they want because that's how they have fun. And so, in terms of the casual aspect, we have a lot of those, like a lot of those people as well. It's very diverse community over here. But in terms of, again, the more competitive, you have the Stephen Lees of the world, you have the Nikki Goldmans of the world, you have the Kevin Cho's of the world that are constantly topping over in the US, despite having the variance, despite having, 2, 3, 400 man fields. In the case of Nikki, probably closer to 5, 600, depending on, what numbers you're seeing out of Care Expo or that California region at a given point in time. You get some people who are having a bit more of nuanced deck building. They have specific clans that they favor. They have specific cards that they favor. They have specific strategies that they favor, that they'll use those specific aspects of their game to elevate that clan, potentially, hitting further above their weight, which kind of screws up the meta in some aspects. In the case of, Steven playing Angel Feather or Kevin playing something like a Gear Chronicle, although Gear Chronicle has definitely fallen out of favor
Solemn's
recently.
playing Grand Blue.
Yeah, Solemn's playing Grand Blue. Perhaps trying to make
Surprise.
Genesis or something. Who knows, So, with something like that, it really messes up the meta analysis to an extent there. And sometimes people don't talk about it because they don't want other people net decking, or even if they net deck, they don't have the same results that these players do because the lists or the way that they're playing is very tailored to how they've built that list and the thought process that goes in behind those playing that deck. So for instance, maybe you have something like an OTT Geese, but then you have a very specific build of NLK that's not reliant on striding, right? Maybe it doesn't play the cat at all. And if you just go into playing that NLK deck, it's going to be a lot more difficult to play that than, for instance, to play that OTT keys deck where you flip triggers and you strike keys and you win. So it in terms of a meta analysis standpoint, that's definitely more of a question. In terms of price of entry, I guess the US is just very variant. There's a lot of different types of tournaments. We've had 1Ks in the past. We've had regionals that are free. Generally the price of entry, at least the barrier of entry in the US is a bit higher than I would say a lot of other locations, just because our cities are so far apart that there's travel involved. Going from for instance, if you live in Chicago and going to the Columbus 1K, you'd have to drive for 4 hours. So, that already is a barrier of entry outside of the fact that you have to pay $25 to enter the tournament. So there's a lot of different aspects, especially as it relates to US about logistics. I know Robbie does a lot for the Midwest area in terms of hosting tournaments for standard and premium and trying to account for whether, his location in Northern Indiana is going to be better, maybe moving that south to Indianapolis, maybe moving that to Chicago, trying to figure out what the happy medium is going to look like in a tournament structure in the Midwest. And I know the Midwest has a large set of players, but California, that LA region also being that hub as well. Although I think the LA region is much easier to hold tournaments in, just because there's so many people in LA alone, and you're not going to bring in people from the Bay Area. That's a 5-hour drive. You might bring in people from Las Vegas. That's a more manageable drive, but it's a lot more of a contained area than, for instance, trying to deal with Ohio, Michigan, Missouri, Illinois, Wisconsin, etc. So I think that's one of the major prices of entry and the issues with tournament logistics in North America.
I feel price of entry should also include deck cost, however. Like in the US, cards are just way cheaper because for some reason your cases are way cheaper. I assume that's because you don't have the same import tax as Europe. But in general, I agree that everything is like closer in Europe. But at the same time, our flights are like infinitely more expensive because of carbon tax and all of this stuff. So your cards are more expensive in Europe. That's just, if you look at sellers, their pre-orders and so forth, it's always 30%, maybe even 40% higher, purely because our cases start off being 30% higher. And so that's one thing. And then the other thing is, like, again, for your states, like you said, you have to drive many hours, but I think you could say the same for Europe, and we're mostly actually forced into planes, and our planes are so expensive. So I don't know. I feel like the travel aspect is way more alive in the US, at least, than in Europe. Like I can see vlogs of Vanguard players saying, "Oh, we're driving to this other state right now to go to our regional, blah blah blah." Whereas here, the only person crazy enough to do that is me and like my friends and so forth. So like taking planes, I don't know how many Europeans actually have taken planes to go to regionals. There's some, but it's way less of a thing, I feel, here than in the US. But maybe I'm wrong on that.
Makes sense. Noman, you want to add anything about the US?
Yeah, so aside from, I think like Albert and Solemn covered all the travel points, but as far as physical cards go, I feel like Vanguard's it's one of the more generous communities I've been a part of, as far as like TCGs go, aside from like Yu-Gi-Oh and stuff like that. But it's a lot easier to borrow cards, especially since Vanguard events, you don't have as many events as Yu-Gi-Oh does. You have like I think for me, I say around like 4 or 5 events per season that I can consistently travel to. So it's a lot easier to borrow cards to take to those events, as well as cards being a lot cheaper compared to other games. Because you have a G zone, which is generally a staple for most decks. Like you have like your gas steels, your spear X's, pretty much goes into anything, and they're all relatively cheap. So if you need like standard cards, which a lot of decks are becoming standard plus nowadays, so I generally just borrow cards to take to events, and events being free as well as getting like your door prize or door entry, which is really nice. So you get a mat, some Pocky, keep you going throughout the day. Pretty nice on that part. It's like as far as like actual cost of the game, I feel it's very cheap compared to others.
Okay. Kai, what about y'all?
Well, I live in Australia, so there's just a giant body of water in between us and everyone else. So in terms of stuff, it's not exactly the cheapest, and we don't get to travel as much as the other boys. But otherwise, like in Japan, for example, things like I think comparatively every region is like in terms of like meta and even price, they're just relative to their own region. So I guess not much to say there. I mean, I think Alvin and Solemn's covered it pretty well. I think
Yeah.
otherwise, like since Wirab is in Indonesia, he's got the SEA region, and they're pretty close to each other. So I think is it similar to like Europe or America?
I think Indo, Malay, Singapore, Philippines, they are like quite close, and I feel like for the entry, the barrier of entry for us, right, it's pretty low. Like most of the cards here are pretty cheap. I still remember like when I was living in Australia, we tried to just like get cards from Indo just because like the price is way cheaper compared to like Australia prices, which was like what about 50% less, I think, something like that. And
It can be
yeah,
really
it
high.
was it was like really a big difference because we play two formats in Southeast Asia, which was the English one and the Japanese one, and the Jap cards tend to come out like earlier compared to the English one. So people usually have like a rough idea of how much like the cards will go like will price like out when the English cards came out, and they usually just like try to make like basing the price based on the Japanese cards. But the problem is like most of the Japanese cards are like quite cheap, as you can see from like Yute, for example, like one of the most commonly used website for the Asian people. And Yute use like a yen as a price, and that does not count for the tax or like for the shipping fee for all these Asian countries, which was like uh, make it reasonable why it becomes like way cheaper compared to like like the English prices. But people here apparently does not really care. So when they see like a new cards, they just like become like as cheaper as possible. So they always refer to the prices of UT, which it makes like the entire market kind of like have to shift to adjust to what like the market demands. And at the end of the day, the prices just like become really cheap. So, which is why I feel like when I see like the prices pops out in America or in Europe or in Australia in general, it's like it's really mind-boggling for me because like the boxes in Australia was like what $120 for a box if I
I
remember
think it's
correctly.
high now.
Now it's higher, right? Yeah. How much is it? How much is it right now for
I
one
think it's
box?
like 130.
Jesus.
130.
That's like a magic box for me.
Yeah, we have it like for 700k rupiah in Indo, which around $70. That's like half the price of the box in Australia. So you can get two boxes for one. And yeah, that's a really big difference in my opinion. So yeah, obviously the Asian people like economically have like less power, have like less bargaining power compared to the people in US and Europe and also in Australia. So I think it just makes sense to also like lessen the prices as well. And we also like a distance wise quite close to Singapore and to Japan, which it does make sense why we get like a more cheaper price compared to the other countries.
Fair enough. Alrighty, well let's pop on to the next question then. So basically, this game has two main formats, standard and premium. What do you guys do when providing advice for each different format? How do you guys approach them similarly, differently? How? Solemn, I know you're big on premium. You want to start with this?
Sure. So for standard, I feel everything's solved relatively quickly. So usually I would just look at what's stopping in Japan. Often the list will be similar. And then I'll probably ask someone else in the team, like Wirap or Derek or Kai.
Asking me for standard?
Yeah, probably not Wirap. Sorry for that. Whoever basically who has tested, I'll ask like, what do you think of this? And usually it'll be very close. Whereas for premium, I feel like there's the card pool is so vast, and Japan obviously doesn't play it as much, so we can't really mooch off lists from them. So there it's much harder, I feel, to get to a solved list if people don't know what a solved list is, essentially you should assume that there's a objectively superior list at a certain point in time for a certain event. So obviously, if a meta is different or new cards came out and so forth, it all changes depending on what your opponent's playing. But given that you are going to event X with players X and decks X, there should be one deck built for each clan that is superior for that point. And so when I say solved list, that's the one I assume. Now, some people may get angry about that because they're like, no, it's my player preference and it's not my style. But like, if you let a supercomputer play 10 million games and 10 million times the same tournament, one of the lists will have a higher win rate, and that's the solved list. Obviously, we can't do that, but that should be somewhat your goal, in my opinion. So, looking for a solved list in standard, I feel is quite easy because, again, you have all of these Japanese tournaments, Japanese players. You also have just less of a card pool, so there's less odds of there being a very odd strategy. Like in the team, every other week or so, Europe comes with some crazy premium deck. Like, yeah, me and this guy, we've been trying something, and then they do some crazy stuff. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? So sorry for swearing once again.
You're fine. Don't worry about it.
So yeah, it's much harder to solve, I feel. So when you want to give advice to people, I feel it's hard because they may come with like a standard plus list, as some people would say. And despite that standard plus list being good, there's probably still like dozens of things you could try that maybe could be better. So it's much tougher, I feel, but that's what excites me. Like when we're up and Nico and so forth blow my mind with a list, I enjoy that a lot.
Okay. Noman, what about you? What's been your approach?
I don't really have much of an approach to standard. It's exactly like Solemn said. No hate for the standard fellas.
No.
I usually just ask someone that plays standard a lot. I'm like, hey, hit me up with a list, and I'll just play that then and then. It's just
Is
to
that
be
how
like,
you qualified Worlds?
yeah, it was I think, yeah, it was the Murakumo thing.
Yeah.
The night before the event, I was like, yo, Andrew, let me catch your Murakumo list. And he gave it to me. And that is exactly what I played card for card while reading the cards during the event. So I don't have much comment towards that. But as far as premium goes, yeah, premium, like it's exactly like Solemn said. Like the card pool is a lot bigger. You have more interactions within that format. But one of the most valuable lessons I've learned from just playing cards in general is whenever someone mentions that they found something cool or a cool interaction, I believe it's worth testing out, especially if you have time. Because in Vanguard, you have seasons, you have like little breaks in between. So you have like a month or two before fall and spring, which is very nice. Supposed to like Yu-Gi-Oh, where you just have like event like week after week after week. So it's like you don't really have much time. You're always in a crunch. But the whole thing with like, if someone sees like, hey, I think this Kagero deck is really good, it's worth checking out because they might be seeing something that you're not seeing, and it's always nice to explore. And you could always learn something out of it. You have nothing to lose from checking out what their perspective is. And hey, you might find like the secret sleeper deck of the format or something, which is really nice to always like hear out, and especially being on a team where it's like just like Solemn said about like where he always finds like a crazy list. And I'm always excited to play that. But yeah, as far as like advice going for other people, my advice would be like try out anything that piques your interest or the interest of others, because you never know what you'll learn.
Okay. Kai, what do you got to add on to that?
Well, with standard, I generally have fun playing standard, so I have no problem. But in terms,
It's not about fun though. It's just about being solved. I
Yeah,
don't want to
yeah.
give people the wrong idea.
Yeah, like I guess the good thing about standard is most people can just jump in, play relatively anything they want, and still do okay. Especially if it's a new thing. If it's a new thing, then you'll definitely be fine. But even though we do like at WCC, we love premium a lot. I think in standard we also do pretty fine. Like, I mean, to qualify to Worlds, you have to win something, and then I think at Worlds, I think Kevin top 8'd and Kelvin came fourth. So, in standard wise, we have no problems playing standard. I don't think we just like premium a bit more. And yeah, it's just every time I want to play premium, I'm just like, hey, Wirab, give me a deck, or Derek, do you have a spicy list so I can try it out? So that's how it all starts. That's how it all starts.
That's fair.
I guess for me though, I have to like, since I have to make content, I do have to play a lot more standard. So yeah, I think I proxy a bit, play the new stuff, just to kind of get ahead of the curve. So yeah, that's just mainly me.
That's fair. Wirab, they're giving you all the props for your wild premium decks. What's your approach to that?
It's just like a habit of mine. Like every time I try something, it's just like, wow, one or two testing, and then like, wait, this deck is so broken, and then I tell everyone, whoa, this deck is so broken, and okay, and let's hop in CFA, and then like after a few games, they found out that deck sucks. Okay, so just move on to the other deck. I think, yeah, like that's like
there's something interesting about that, right? I'll let you finish.
Yeah, like the good part about it is that like in WCC in the team, right, you have these people that knock some sense to me that, hey, like this deck is actually not broken. Like okay, and then I realized that, and then I just move on. Whereas like maybe you feel like be like a solo player, so like in the other team, like you don't realize that the deck is not actually broken until you went to PCS, and then you just died and run one switch. So it's a good thing, like having these people like become like my lab rat for like testing these random S decks. So definitely helpful, I would say.
I guess like when you think of these decks, right? You think of, let's say you're a beginner and you started Vanguard and you're like, I have this really crazy idea, and you try it and it doesn't work because it's just so crazy. But then as you evolve as a player, you get better and better. You go, wow, this crazy idea is actually really good. Now that I'm applying all this, like all my skill to it, or everything I've learned, and now this crazy idea just might work. And I think like 9 out of 10 times the idea still doesn't work, but then 1 out of 10 times it actually does. Right? So
that's fair. Albert, what about you?
I think I'm on the same boat as Solemn, although I want to add to what he said about solved list with solved formats. Generally with standard, the format is pretty much solved out of the gate. Like there is a definitive, 1-2 decks that will just top every event. Like regardless, like top 8, 60% of these decks, 60% of those tops will be deck A, deck B. In this case, right now, it's basically just Gurgit and Luard running the entire format, right? And so there's a lot less, deck C, deck D that gets into those top 8, that breaks into those top 8s, that wins those tournaments, just because of that. Whereas in premium, you have these random decks that you've never heard of. I'm gonna look at the last Vision tournament, for example, where there was like 4 Harry decks or whatever. I don't think anybody would have thought Harry would be crazy in premium in this current format, but there was 3-4 Harry decks in top 8. You would think Murakumo would be running this format, but you have these random decks that creep up that can counter Murakumo. Maybe Murakumo is 60% of the field, but these decks are designed to hard counter Murakumo, and you have specific cards that are centered around being able to stop Murakumo's restanding abilities. Maybe they take Connolly, maybe they are playing with some kind of interaction in terms of board wipes, so Denial Griffin type cards to counter on their opponent's turn, which is interaction on defense, right? Something that standard doesn't have. And not saying that standard needs something like that, but by having, this variety of cards that no one's ever heard about, maybe you're playing some card from BTO3 that only like 5 people in the world actually have thought about in the past, that randomly comes up and is now the best card in the format. Who would have thought Bobo would have been so amazing, right, in an LK format? But something like that, an interaction of cards that no one ever thought would ever see play, now seeing play, makes the format, not even just the list, but the format in general of premium just really hard to predict, because you never know what other deck will loop you for stride, and you'll just die because you couldn't play the game.
That's fair.
So, I just want to add what Albert said about the Vision tournament. So every week I actually watch the Premium Vision tournament, like in CFA. So I knew that the Vision tournament got a lot of flack from people, being that there's not many participants in it. Like on all the decks are like meme decks. You can't really find any Castile or any new ways or like the Pelman loop. So, but the interesting thing about these tournaments are like even though they're like more casual settings wise, they provide us with like a lot of different kind of decks that we never seen it before. I mean, like all these hairy tops that I've seen, they are not just there because they'll get lucky or something like that, but they were piloted by people that actually good in the game. Like I saw some of the hairy skins as well, and they actually like have like a good plan, and then it's like this pretty decent list that can pretty much be like a tier 2 or tier 1.5 if I may. And it just open like a lot of like possibilities, not just like the hairy deck but also like Tachikazes or Great Nature, so um that's the thing about premium, right? You can't really say that like these A, B, and C decks are like the meta, and then like you can just disregard any other decks like in
I
standard.
agree.
But yeah, like all of these like tricky decks that you don't know what they can do, it can possibly be your downfall. Like when you meet them in the first round or the second round of Swiss, and then you don't know like what the hell are this deck doing, and then they just write it grade 3 and then you just die because you disrespect their capabilities to 0-6 you in like turn 3. So to have like this knowledge is for me and for the team is always a good thing in my
I
opinion.
think another point though, because you mentioned like how DI best tick and oh it's not doing well in Vision, blah blah. The same people who would like shit on Vision and go like, oh, damn, I swore again. The same people who would be negative about an event because it has like a weird topping, they entered those events at first with DI and got crushed by those weird decks.
Yeah.
I just want to throw that out there. Like, there's a lot of people getting really loud and toxic about certain things, but the fact of the matter is that those weird decks people are disrespecting in that top 8 did crush some of these lists that people say are so much
Yeah.
better. So I think that's really important to keep in mind because there's some gold there, like we're upset that people just aren't respecting. But if you actually take a close look, there's a lot you can learn.
I always like to give the argument it's the merfolk effect. I don't know if you ever watch Magic or anything. There's always one
Yeah.
merfolk player in modern top. Always.
Mhm.
The top 32 there will be one merfolk player. And it's because he's a really good player and no one prepares for it. That's it. So so real quick, this one I want to add this question in, and we don't have to go too deep into it. What is everyone's favorite clan, and does that affect your decision when you're going in? Are you like, damn, I really want to play golds in this tournament or something? We'll start with
I can
Noman.
feel I can feel Solemn and David Smart's blood pressure rising.
Why?
I'm in Alabama and I can feel like the temperature of Belgium's air just shoot up. Like,
So who's going first?
Noman, you're going first.
so every week I always find some like really cool deck, and I just go like, oh, this week's favorite deck is Pale Moon. I'm always like constantly changing. I guess I thought about it a little more one day. I think it's because I just like Vanguard as a whole. But if I had to choose my actual favorite deck, it's probably Shadows.
Okay.
Out of all the decks, Dice just consistently lands on the Shadow Paladin portion of it. But
Okay.
yeah, if you see my answer change, it's probably gonna change again.
That's fair. I'm gonna save the two well, what did he say? The two warm ones for after. We'll go with Albert.
I think out of all of the decks that I've play tested or done anything, and I'm pretty sure my friends would agree with me on this one, my favorite deck has to be Great Nature. I think that's the one that I'm always messing with and always thinking about in the back of my mind, despite it being kind of terrible right now. But occasionally there were those one or two times where nobody thought it was going to be good, but it was actually an amazing pick. I think Worlds, when Solemn played it, Great Nature was potentially the solution to the other two decks. Unfortunately, I guess both of our executions ended up being kind of wrong with both Kevin and yourself not doing as well as we would have hoped. But
That's just goals, man. I never
it's
forgive
just-
him.
Yeah, and then team kill as well on top of it. Right?
yeah, yeah. But again, yeah, I think for me it would be Great Nature.
I guess I'm next, right? So I guess it's Kagura or Link Jerka. Yeah, just one of those decks. Every format, it's like, is this good? Yes, good times. No, well.
That's fair.
See you next time.
All right, we're
Toxic decks. Very toxic decks. Link Joker. Yeah,
all right, we're
it's good.
let me have it.
Link
What's your
Joker is a
favorite?
good game.
What's our favorite
Yeah,
clan? And
Yeah, so I think people knew me most, and people in Australia knew most about me was my Aqua Force. So yeah, I went from 2015 to 2016. I went through like 5 or 6 consecutive tournament tops with Aqua Force. That was included the Asia Championship, Continental Championship win in Singapore. So I went with Aqua Force and first like 5 Shadow Paladins in a row or something like that. It's like pretty much like the entire tournament was like Revengers and Revengers and Revengers, and I was just like the only one to play with Aqua Force, and it just like smash everyone. So I think after that time it was like, yeah, I think I just should stick with Aqua Force still my entire life. But like unfortunately, like the year afterwards, got really bad supports. It didn't work that well, so I switched a bit to the other blue clans, Grand Blue and Bermuda. So I would say like the blue clans are like the one that fit my aesthetical, like they are like aesthetically pleasing in terms of like visions and good effects. They are like the colors are blue as well, so I like blue, even though like I wear red jackets right now.
Except that one
But
year
yeah,
where you
like,
played Chaos, right?
yeah, except for that one day. So yeah, that was like I don't know what I'm thinking, man. But yeah, like unfortunately right now, I'm not playing any of the 3 clans, the 3 blue clans. I become like a Genesis one trick, as like all these people been telling. I've just been spamming Genesis throughout this entire year, and I think in Premier right now they are the best deck. Like undisputed, the best deck in the format right now. No bias, obviously.
Well, I should tell you about the actual best deck.
Here we go.
So my favorite 2 clans are Grand Blue and Great Nature, and you would like I would love to have that impact my deck choice for events, but every single time I've taken Great Nature to an event, it has been a catastrophic failure. So, like, and honestly, for Worlds 2018, I still believe it was the best pick, but it didn't happen. So, but yeah, other events I've tried Great Nature, it always failed. They inherently don't plus like early on, which is when you need it. Like every time I've taken Great Nature, someone just goes like, "Oh, crit," and it's over because I just don't draw until stride. And so they also run like all these 5k shields, like Mike Saburo and Dugbill. So the deck is just frail as hell until later on, but the later on never happens for me. I don't know why. I really wanted to play Grand Blue the last season that we were actually allowed to play, but Ezel was so much better that I never dared. And also, I was afraid of Gradora because some crazy nut job would bring Gradora and that would completely auto win against Grand Blue. But beyond that, I felt it was like a good pick. I could beat DI, I could beat Gold sometimes before Providence Angel at least. Could beat Neo, so it felt really good. But just the fear of Gradora really hurt. So if I'm able to, I will probably pick Grand Blue for events. But very often there's just a clear better deck that I then have to forego it because I've learned my lesson with Great Nature. Like, sure, I can be like decent with my pet deck, and sure, you can outsmart people, but if the deck is just not as good as you hope it is, you'll probably have a bad time regardless.
that's fair. All right.
I want to add about the deck choice, right? The deck choice about if my favorite kinds of fact the deck choice that I want to bring in a tournament. So fun story was like in all of my tops after until now, right? I never been able to tops without clans that are not from blue countries or gold paladin. So I can only top and win this like 4 clans basically, which is like I played like other clans, the Shadow of the Link Joker, I mentioned the Great Nature, play like a lot of different stuff, but yeah, I don't know, like it's just not for me, I guess.
It's gold
So
paladin
yeah,
Indonesia, man.
yeah, I mean, hopefully I can top it next year, hopefully. If
Fair
enough
enough.
events.
All right, well, let's move on to the next question then. So y'all have your world's representation. Obviously, there's a lot of tops and stuff. You guys have brought cards like the Gold Paladin GB8 into light. And obviously, a lot of loudness about the Zaza and stuff. Um, what are ways you guys play test and then make decisions on these cards?
I guess just normally, right?
Well, yeah, but like, what are ways? Because you guys are, not you're not playing with somebody
Yeah,
next to you. It's
yeah. Sometimes we do. I know, like in Australia, we like playtesting a lot together, but generally, like I think in this time, this is the time that we're doing this. This discussion is usually the peak international playtesting time,
Yes.
right? With Solemn.
Right. So I'd say we're usually like in pods because obviously the team has like 29 members. Obviously, a part of that is also in Wise, so those wouldn't playtest in the same pods. But so having a bunch of people in the same Discord call would be a nightmare. I don't think we've ever had more than 6 at once, I want to say. Very often it's like 2 or 3. So 2 or 3 will be playing on CFA, one will be watching, or just 2 players playing, no one watching. You talk about it, you reiterate, then you say, like, tell that to another member, then that member hopefully doesn't leak it to friends. And then they will then start playing within their pods. And so instead of the entire team being in one call, which would be a nightmare, I feel, it's mostly like pods being created. And it's not like there's set ones apart from Noman and I. We are like our testing is pretty together all the time. But apart from that, the pods just break up. Like sometimes it'll be me with Kai, and then it'll be Derek with Kai, and then it will be we're up with I, and then it will be we're up with Derek, and so forth. And we just constantly move around until we all, I guess, get close to the same ideas. I want to say, though obviously not everyone's the same. So very often our ideas will still be different. Like I'll say Grand Blue's best deck, and then we're up will be wrong. So
Hey, the good thing about having a worldwide team is that if you really wanted to, you could stay up the whole day and be able to find a different playtesting partner at different times of the day.
That's
just
true.
because of time zones.
That's true. Like in the noon, I can play with Wirab, and then in the evening, I can play with Noman, and I'm sure they can like also create pods that way. So that's pretty fun, actually.
Okay. Yeah, it's not. I'm gonna be honest. It's not a hugely fantastic worded question, so we may just cut that part. But if it's easier for y'all, so we'll just jump onto the next one. What does WCC look for in the future? What are you guys looking forward to? So, we're excited for the prospect of overdress. Do we think there's gonna be rotation, that kind of stuff? You guys looking forward to?
I mean, first thing that would be nice is events starting back up.
Well, yes, of course, of course, yeah. Well, world's not burning.
Yeah.
I want to say, yeah, regionals, honestly.
So we're looking forward to.
Like overdress, cool. Sure, we'll see. I'm excited for new cards, not an endless train of retrains, but just being able to hang out again. Like the best time of my life was literally just hanging in Japan with everyone, playing till 4 a.m. while drinking Japanese Sprite, while eating chocolates, watching Kai Beyblade. So those experiences, just being able to have those again and going to events would be probably like the best thing. And then overdress and all, I hope it's really good. I hope premium keeps getting love, but that's secondary to actually getting events back, I would say.
Okay. Albert, what about you?
Yeah, I think I'm on the same boat. Events coming back, potentially them, especially with the initiative that they started right kind of at the onset of the pandemic with content creators and them reaching out with Bushiroad actually reaching out to content creators, Kai revealing cards, Solemn revealing cards. I think hopefully they start, really honing in with those kinds of initiatives, potentially helping out Vision maybe with their tournaments. Although, maybe if they're more on-site tournaments when that actually opens up, potentially them expanding on remote fight in a more usable manner for those that don't have locals that they can attend, right? I think that kind of support really helps grow those like really rural areas of the not only the US but Europe and Southeast Asia as well. And really, I hope Overdress and they do give Premium some love, but not Zazan type love because we don't need that.
So what we're basically saying is
Yeah,
play testing. We're
Yeah,
really hoping for
we
play
we hope
testing.
that their dev team that they brought on for Japan, because we've been hearing some news that they've actually brought on a testing and dev type role for this game, really does help out the card quality.
Okay. No, man. What about you?
Same as the others. Like I'm hoping events kick back off. World gets restored and everything. Like just having events keeps me motivated to always strive better. Like without events, like I feel like at least for me, I've been slacking on my end of testing. I just always like, as well as like the travel parts, like one of the best things about playing a TCG, just meeting up with all your friends, having a blast before, after the event. It's just like what Solemn said about like Japan. Japan was probably the best trip I've ever had in my life. Just being with all the homies and like it was like waking up in your hotel and you go downstairs and it's like the Cardfight area lobby because just everyone's just there. Like even at Yu-Gi-Oh! Nats, like sometimes I go down to the lobby and it just looks like the dueling book lobby. You'll even see like a certain
Yeah.
spot where people playing goats and we just joke like no Pendolo, no Synchro, no XYZ or something like that. But yeah, I just want events back eventually. I understand why we don't have them and I fully respect that. But yeah, it's just a matter of time at this point.
So we're all kind of itching. Events.
Yeah, well, it's probably Genesis, man.
Pretty much.
Okay, Kai, we're about the same for you guys.
Yeah.
Mostly events.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty much events.
All right. Well, let's move on to the next one then. So this is our final question for that. If a player would like to be or a part of WCC, why would they want to be? What do you guys do to draw them? What would you do to draw in players?
You find out the secret tech, the secret histories of WCC. You learn more about we have memes.
Sure, memes, okay.
A lot of memes from No Man. A lot of
Yeah.
shit posting.
Okay.
Every
You get
morning you
some-
wake up
and
to a Noman story. He goes like, "Oh, I have a crazy story," and then he just starts talking.
And then you will be the birthday card present every. There's like all these people.
You get a meme birthday card from Weirab when it's your birthday. You get to talk with the one and only Solemn Vanguard. What?
Okay. Albert, what about you?
Maybe one day you'll actually hear Kevin Cho talk.
Maybe one day. All right.
She talked once in our group chat. Please ban Paro. I'm like, no, you can't have it.
Mute.
All right. Well, I personally like to end these off by letting each one of y'all, if you guys have anything, add anything. If you guys want to say anything, you can. If not, no worries. Anybody have anything they'd like to add at the end of this panel?
Enjoy
Check it out.
Vanguard, play premium, keep buying cards, go to events. I don't know. Just enjoy the game, really.
Support
Okay.
your local store.
Support your local.
And in a couple hours, I'm gonna be at that Digimon release, and it's gonna be a blast.
I'm going to that in my store opens in 30 minutes. So the minute we're done with this, yep, shoes on, gone, go and get my Digimon cards. So
My plan is pass out, wake up, and whatever time I wake up on, I guess it's just down to time lottery. That's when I go to the shop.
Fair enough. All right. Well, thanks everybody for doing this panel. We really appreciate it. Thanks everyone for tuning in to this panel for Cardfight Con. We will have plenty more ahead.